Included in the Advanced Steel PowerPack is a tool for inserting glass panels. In order to utilize this tool, the first step would be to come up to the ribbon. In the Create Elements section, you'll see it consists of 4 different buttons. And the first one you'll need to use is the Glass Data button. So left click on that. Once you do, a dialog box will open. Once that box opens, you can come down here and you need to select the elements that that glass panel is going to be put in between. So the primary elements that you're going to use, what is that going to be? And in this case here, I'm going to place it inside this handrail. And so I'm going to select the hollow section pipes. So if I come into here, I'll just drop this down, circular hollow section. You'll see they have in here HSS pipe standard. And I know these are 1.5 inches. Right. Once you have this in place, once you've selected your parts, hit save. You'll notice that the box right above it gets replaced with the name of the elements that you're going to be using in order to frame your glass. So this is basically what elements you're going to use as the frame for your glass. And it saves it here, so if you use it on a regular basis, you can always switch back and forth between them. You don't have to do this every time. You then have options for the frame, how is it placed in by default, or is it going to be on one of these 9 cardinal points? You can offset the Z by default and the Y in the positive or negative direction as well. For this example here, I'm just going to leave things as default and close the dialog. Now that we've selected the parts that we're using for our frame, we need to go and define the panels, and this will be the second step. Clicking on that opens up the Define Panels dialog window, and the first thing you'll see is panel name, and you can see there's already a wide variety of panels existing. You can say how many layers of glass you want to use. So here I have number of layers 2. I could set that to whatever I want, and then my index will allow me to cycle through the different layers and define any of the information I need related to that particular layer. You have a side offset, so if you need to offset it, you can do that, and you can switch the orientation. At the bottom, you have in the first drop down, what is it that's being placed in? And you can see we have window glass. There is also the ability to go in and do landing panels, mild steel, fiberglass. You can see it, web forged aluminum, other elements as well. Okay. Leave it at window glass. Whichever one you select, below that, you're going to get a list of elements related to that category. And you can pick the size or shape or what type of, in this case, window glass that you want to use. And you can do that individually. So each one can be different. So if you have more than one layer, each layer can be different. You'll notice on the bottom, as I cycle through the layer, the distance to the next layer either becomes visible or invisible. And it will always start with the first layer, with the distance to next layer being visible. And when you reach the last layer, it disappears. And so you can adjust the spacing in between. Once this is done, you can save it and just close. So now that we've defined the type of frame that we're going to be using, we also have our glass panels defined. We can now insert the glass panels into this area. So here you have to find what area is it in, and it has to be in circles. So you have to have elements that touch one another and go all around the area that you want to place that glass panel into. So if I come here to insert glass now, I can left click on that, pick those elements and place it in. However, before doing this, because this will not work, if I were to do this right now, you'll see if I right click, nothing happens. Operation gets aborted. There are no closed contours detected. The reason for this is you need to set the UCS where you want that glass panel to go in. So I'm going to come into here for my UCS. I will pick UCS at object, select the rail, and right click. I'm then going to rotate that so that my Y is up, but you'll notice that Z is pointed at the rail. I've got X going the length and Y is pointing in the direction I want it to go up. Now I can insert the glass. I'll do the exact same thing. I'll pick the elements that describe the frame that I want to put the glass panel into, and right click. You'll see the panel comes in. Once it comes in, you can come in and you can say, I want to give it a unique name. I want to learn a little bit more about the tool that we used to create it. Or in general here, I have my glass index, and I can say, I want the same settings to apply to all, or uncheck that, and then I can cycle through the different indexes. They also have same for all edges down here. So you can uncheck those and individually control the different areas. Layers, if you have multiple, now you'll see that you're going to be able to control your layer index. Okay, so down here you have layer index, but if I put it on single, there is no layer index. It disappears. You also have changes from the glass panel to the set that was created. So remember when we said save, we set up our set. So that's goes from window glass to picking a pane of glass, to where if you're doing multiple, you pick that set that you created under glass defined panels, and then you pick that set. You can do your Z offset if you want, which will push it in or out. You also have down here your layer index, so if you have more than one panel, you can choose between them or say same for all. Then you have down here edge index, and you can cycle through and adjust each edge index. If it's same for all edges, then this won't take effect. It'll be overridden. Anything you do to one will happen to all of them. Finally, at the bottom, you have your side offset, and I can say I want this to be -1 inch, and you can see the panel gets smaller, it shrinks, and goes into that frame that we just specified. Okay. So if you need to come in and adjust the size, you can do that. This is the same for all edges, so it's done all the edges all the way around. Let me just change the layer, and you can see the layer side offset is different. So I'll do the same thing for that, and you can see it'll adjust accordingly. So this allows me to put in that set that I created, or do a single pane of glass without creating the set. You can then come in and say, I want to create the layer, adjust which layer I want to adjust, how I want to adjust it, which edge I want to pull in or push out, and so on and so forth. So you have full control over that after it gets placed in. If I do the other side, I'll just come back and insert the glass again. I just need to pick the elements that make up the frame that go around the glass. It recognizes that opening. I can come into here. I'll do again multiple. And then I'll change my layer. And you can see now we have our glass inside this handrail placed in the area I defined as the frame. And I've set it up according to the information that I created ahead of time. I can now call this out. They have the option here to create a glass list, which goes through your model and looks for all elements that are considered glass. So anything placed in with this tool here, you can say create glass. It needs to be numbered first. So we go to output, numbering. Once it's numbered, we'll come back here and say glass list. And this will read all the glass that's inside your model. And here you can see I've got other as well. So here's my 416.4, which was the set that I created and just placed in. It says I have two of those, two sets. Okay. The quality, length, width, weight, kilograms per piece, total weight, surface, meters squared per piece, total surface area. Right? So it creates that glass list for you and calls out just from the model all the elements that are considered glass. Now you'll notice I have other items in here. I could come in as well, create it for not just handrails, but for any type of structure or shape that I need glass panels placed into. And this is what was being called out in that list, because as part of this model, everything, like I said, gets called out at the same time. So you have that option. You can go in, you can generate your glass panels, place them in, and then at any time if you need to, these boxes are here, allows you to reopen them. You can go in and you can adjust it as needed. and that is the glass panel.